podcast, the Everyman Nerds podcast. My name is Taylor Salen, and joining me today is...
Kurt Hall.
Awesome.
At your service.
We are going to go ahead and do a Iron Man 3 review today for you guys. Kurt just got back from seeing the movie. I got to see it Thursday night at one of those 9 o'clock screenings. So we're just going to give our general thoughts here, and then we're just going to go straight into spoilers.
Iron Man 3 was a mixed bag for me. The fact that, the action scenes are really good, and I would say they're probably the best of the series. But there's a really big pivotal scene in the middle of the film that totally ruined the whole film for me, especially from a marketing standpoint. And I don't want to say it's a bad movie, but I can't really say it's a good one either.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. I really, really enjoyed Iron Man 3. I think it's fun, it's kind of a fun, what you're going to get with the Iron Man movies. You're going to get that snappy, snarky Tony Stark dialogue between him and Pepper and Rhodey and stuff like that. And I think Shane Black did a pretty good job as far as the dialogue is concerned now. I'm sure you probably feel the same way, but I have a lot of problems with the actual story of the movie and the plot itself, the way the plot's written and constructed. I think there are some things that maybe could have been elaborated on more. Trying to kind of tiptoe around things here. But I thought it was a fun movie. I think for a third movie, it's really hard to keep things fresh. And I think in some respects, this movie did that,
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really hate Iron Man 2. I think Iron Man 2 is an okay movie. At least it had a comprehensive story, and it tried to stick to it as much as possible. The snappy dialogue jokes and such kind of ruined that. And let's face it, Black Widow ruined Iron Man 2. But this one kind of lacked that for me. That comprehensive story, the lack of, it just really hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certain things in the third act where I really almost felt like it was a slap to fans, slap in the face to fans in a way. Just because of things that were, let's say, promised by the movie, especially those fans of the comic. They'll probably understand what I'm talking about if they've seen it. But I thought, like you said, the action was pretty incredible. There's a certain scene in specific that I want to bring up later that I thought was just wonderful. It was just exhilarating for me. And overall, I think this movie's, for me, a 6.5 out of 10. What is your rating, Kurt, before we go ahead and jump into spoilers?
I'm going to give it an average 5 out of 10. It's not really something I hate, but nothing that I really want to revisit either.
Yeah, but I guess the question is, do you think it's worth people spending their money on to go see in theaters?
I think so. Only on the idea that it is fun. You're going to have fun watching it, even though you may be a little disappointed.
Yeah. I think I have to agree. I think it's definitely worth seeing, especially if you've seen the previous movies or you're a Marvel fan at all. I think it's worth a shot. You may not end up liking all of it, but I definitely think there's a lot of things to like, and there's definitely an improvement over Iron Man 2. So with that being said, we're going to jump into spoilers here. You guys know the drill. If you haven't seen this movie, make sure to come back when you have and watch this. And if you're just leaving us now, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can always email us at movienerdsmailbox@gmail.com. So with that being said, Kurt, what were your problems with this movie?
Honestly, I didn't have that many. I thought the snappy dialogue was really good, and the jokes in the whole first third of the movie are awesome. But when you get to the second third of the film, in the trailers, the Mandarin is treated like he is this big villain who is going to ruin Tony Stark's world. And, technically it's true because you figure out a lot of things about the Mandarin. However, the Mandarin is not who you would expect it to be. No. And, Ben Kingsley in this film is terrifying the first half. Just absolutely terrifying. Especially with the way they cut his TV intros. And then you figure out he's just some junkie who was promised drugs if he shows up and looks like a terrorist. Like,
Yeah.
just completely killed the movie for me.
I know, and
Especially when, I mean, guy... Go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say that's what I was referring to when it felt like a big slap in the face to fans, you know? Because ever since the first movie, and even if you watch Iron Man 2 in the credits, there's a reference to the Ten Rings. The people who capture Tony in the first movie, where he builds the Mark I suit, are the Ten Rings terrorists. You know, they're part of that group. And so when you build up this kind of mythic figure in a way, you know, um, with this group, and I mean, obviously, if you know anything about the Iron Man comics, you know that the Mandarin is, of course, like Tony Stark's, like it's one of his greatest rivalries. You know, it's kind of like the Joker to Batman, and I feel like not going with the comic roots in that sense, and kind of not sticking with the Mandarin in the third act, as we know him from the comics, was a big mistake. Um, so I don't know, man. I just that like I was sitting in the theater and I was just like, okay, wait, is this really happening right now? And I was kind of in shock almost for a couple minutes, you know, while that scene was going on where it's revealed that Ben Kingsley is actually just a, like you said, a junkie pretty much who they promised to keep giving him drugs and alcohol and women, you know. And although the scene I thought was very funny and Ben Kingsley did a really good job in the scene, just the overall concept of the scene really kind of irritated me in a way.
Yeah, I agree. And not only that, but I thought Ben Kingsley does such a good job in the first half of the film that it kind of seems like they were building him up to be the Mandarin. You know, and for to pull that gotcha moment made the movie feel so childish, especially with all the humor in the scene. They don't play it off like it's like, oh, this is a big plot twist.
Yeah.
No, it's just like, hey, let's have a joke about somebody doing drugs.
Yeah.
That really frustrates me.
I will have to say, a couple scenes later when Rhodey, when Tony meets up with Rhodey in that complex, and he actually goes back with him, and he's sitting there pointing the gun at him. I really loved a piece of dialogue where he was like, pretty much like, "Are you freaking kidding me? Like, are you fucking kidding me right now?" And that's kind of like, I felt that was kind of like a shout out to the fans, like, you're not really gonna believe this is happening, but it is, you know. So I don't know. I think that was a big misstep, especially after all the buildup in the trailers and things like that too. It just felt a little misleading. But I had other problems too, like with the. Did you completely understand the way that the extremist technology worked as far as the baddies? Like, I mean, it felt like it was a little. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like in certain scenes, this extremist would blow these people up for no apparent reason, and some people could survive it, and some people couldn't. And I just felt like maybe a line of dialogue could have helped explain that away, you know, and I probably wouldn't have had a problem with it. But that's more of a nitpicky.
Yeah.
That's more of a nitpicky type of thing. But the thing that really irked me was the actual effect of the extremists when these people would kind of turn molten almost. I just didn't really find that very convincing, to be honest. I don't know how you feel about it, Kurt.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed very
I
unrealistic, you know.
Mm-hmm. It felt more like a really bad sci-fi movie effect than an actual planned out visual effects work that is believable. And
Yeah.
not only that, but I think the biggest problem with this film, even the plot twist you can kind of live with because it kind of goes with the tone of the film, but Iron Man really doesn't fight anything in this movie. And when he does fight things, he loses every time.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, his biggest win in the film is at the end when he takes his suit, the 42 suit, and blows up Guy Pearce's character. The problem with that is it doesn't kill Guy Pearce's character, so I can never tell how to kill these guys because obviously erupting them like a massive bomb doesn't work. So I don't know what does.
Exactly. And then in an earlier scene, like one of the scenes in the town, like where was it, in Tennessee or something like that? The scene in the town in Tennessee where he gets attacked by all these extremist soldiers. There's a scene where he like uses a part of his repulsor, I guess, to blow one of them out. And then, of course, it's the James Badge Dale character, the main kind of Guy Pearce's kind of main henchman, if you will. And then he comes back later in the movie, and I don't understand kind of the mechanics of the way this thing works, you know? So again, that just goes back to that what I was saying, like with the actual scripting of the plot and the plot elements, I don't think was very tight. But I mean, on the flip note, I thought the dialogue was outstanding. You know, I thought it was really great in certain points. But one of the things that really annoyed me, and this is one of my nitpicks with Iron Man 2, is how are all these people using the suits? I thought they were supposed to be foolproof and only supposed to be used, like, even in Iron Man 2 when Rhodey goes down into his workshop and takes the suit, I just don't understand it because Rhodey doesn't have an arc reactor holding keeping him alive like Tony does. So I thought these suits could only be powered by an arc reactor. So you're telling me that anyone can jump into these suits? Like, I just don't understand that. Like, when the James Badge Dale character kind of hijacks the War Machine suit and commandeers it and goes on to Air Force One, I just don't. First of all, I don't understand why they wouldn't make sure that it was Rhodey. First of all, I just find that stupid. Second of all, like how is he so easily getting in and out of the suit? Like, you think the suit would shut down or reject him in some way because it's not Rhodey? And I still even have problems with Rhodey being able to use the suit, you know. So I don't know. That was one of those things that really, really annoyed me.
Yeah, I gotta agree.
I
could maybe buy the War Machine suit not having that effect that the Tony Stark suit does, because it's kind of designed by other people, so it's not maybe as complicated as the Iron Man suit itself. But then you have the even bigger problem is that there's too many Iron Men in this movie, and I don't understand how in Iron Man 2 we can go from having like maybe 6 suits, maybe.
Yeah, there's 6
like
at the end of that movie.
Why are there 42 all of a sudden? Like, do we take up that much time in between?
No,
I think it was because
more
it doesn't
of a
seem
thing.
like that big of a time frame.
Yeah, no, I understand, but they also kind of explain that away in a sense, in a bit of dialogue where he says, like, he hasn't been sleeping, so he's basically just been working on suits like 20 to 22 hours a day for the last. I don't even know how long it's been since the Avengers. 6 months, maybe? I don't even know. They just kind of referenced New York. And that was another thing I really didn't like is the it's okay for them to talk about New York in bits of dialogue, but for them to actually show little tiny snippets, little edits of the New York battle from Avengers kind of just reminded me how much more I like the Avengers than this movie. In a way, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that syndrome that the Total Recall remake had, where there's so many references to the original movie that it just reminds me how worse of a movie this is than compared to the original.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just
I like Shaney in Black. I like Shaney in Black a lot, and I like his sense of humor. But to me, when I was watching this film, I felt like I was watching an Iron Man version of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Like, it didn't feel like its own film. It felt more like a guy kind of taking his own sensibilities and bringing it into a world that he doesn't really belong in, because he obviously doesn't read the comic book / follow the story at all. And then he tries to make a witty little twist in the middle of the film that totally kills or makes the film work for you, and I don't like that. To me, superhero films are one genre of film where I like where people play it safe. That is one thing that you should stick to the fan base on.
Yeah. I mean, going back to what you said about this kind of being Kiss Kiss Bang Bang 2, I mean, I have to agree. There's a lot of parallels between the two movies. I mean, I actually went to see this movie with some friends, and on the way home, I was just, kind of telling them about Shane Black and that he directed this movie called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and it really reminded me of it because when you really think about it, both movies are set in Christmas. Both movies revolve around a mystery. Both movies are very witty with kind of jokes that kind of break the fourth wall, especially in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. through narration literally talks to the audience in that movie. So I think there's a lot of stuff that it feels like he's kind of repeating himself in a way. you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so
Plus, the opening scene of this film at the party takes way too long, in my opinion. Like, I
yeah.
get that, they had to introduce the Guy Pearce character and they had to introduce the other scientist. But for them to have this whole illustration of him having sex with her, okay, I get it. It's Tony Stark and he sleeps with women. We've done these jokes before in the first two films. We didn't really have to reinforce it here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially when you know he's going to be with Pepper Potts in the next scene too, you know. It seems like a kind of a weird tonal shift, if you will. Um, Speaking of Guy Pearce, what did you think about him in this movie? The character and Guy Pearce's performance.
I did not like the character very much. I thought he was kind of annoying, but I thought Guy Pearce played the character really well for what it was. He was very menacing, and sometimes he'd throw in jokes in there that make his character have this like wild card feel. I didn't
Yeah.
really know how to feel about him the whole time. I think that was kind of the point. Um, but yeah, I didn't really like the villain character. I think if they stuck with Ben Kingsley being the villain, this movie is a lot more enjoyable because he's much more menacing. He's this terrifying figure who actually I hate to use this, but he actually looks like a terrorist. He doesn't like Guy Pearce doesn't look like a terrorist. He looks like a rich white guy with white people problems.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you don't even see Guy Pearce that much in this movie. I think he maybe has like 6 or 7 scenes, like excluding the final battle, you know. So you don't really. I mean, at least in the first two Iron Man movies, there's a lot of scenes of Justin Hammer. In the second one, there's a lot of scenes of Obadiah Stane. So you kind of see how this animosity between Tony Stark and these villains kind of builds up into the final battle, you know. And I don't really feel like Guy Pearce was integrated well into this movie. And same goes with the scientist character played by Rebecca Hall, who I think is completely pointless. I mean, she's in 4 scenes, and it's like, what was the point? I mean, you could have narrowed down the runtime by 10 minutes by just completely cutting her character out, you know? Except for maybe the first scene, you could show her inventing the extremist technology, and then you wouldn't even have to have her because she explains everything she needs to explain. I mean, even when you find out in the third act that she's betrayed Pepper and that she's been kind of playing on her emotions and stuff, it doesn't mean anything because you don't have any scenes with her to get to know her, you know? And they try to play it like she's conflicted, you know, and I didn't feel it. I didn't understand it, you know? It kind of felt just like wasted screen time to me, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And what confused me is they had no problem in Iron Man 2 throwing like Black Widow on screen for no apparent reason. And
Other
I
than to
felt
build
like
up to the
this was
Avengers.
pretty much that whole movie was just a wasted experience. I can see why Jon Favreau wanted to never do another film for Marvel again after that.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
I
But
mean, and Marvel's
even
notorious for underpaying their people too. You know, like I mean, all the directors from Captain America, the original directors coming not back. They're bringing in and Thor too. They're bringing in cheaper talent. You know, because as the stars of the movies get bigger, you know, they demand more of a salary. So I just kind of feel like that's one of the problems of this movie. At the same time, you know, if that makes any
I
sense.
feel like that's just yeah. There's just I don't know whether there's not enough going on in this film or just too much. Too many. It's too problematic for its own good, really.
Yeah.
And I think my least favorite scene of the whole film is near the end when Pepper Potts ends up fighting the Mandarin. Now, I'm sorry. I like Gwyneth Paltrow in Iron Man 1 and 2. I think she's a fun character to keep track of just because she's kind of like the emotional center of the film.
Yeah.
But her taking on a villain is laughable. It's Gwyneth Paltrow, and you have Tony Stark sitting there just watching. Like, come
Yeah.
on. At what point are we going to have Iron Man actually fight someone?
Yeah, and then that was the problem with the first two movies too. You know, it felt like everything was great, especially number one, everything was great except for the action, and they improved it on number two, and the other stuff kind of took a dive, and I feel like they improved on the action even more in this one, and it kind of almost took a similar dive, or maybe even a little more. Even though I like this movie more than Iron Man 2, don't get me wrong, um, but I want to know what you thought about the action. Which action scene was your favorite? Just out of curiosity.
I gotta go with the whole scene in the oil derrick. I mean, aside from the beginning where you have Don Cheadle and Robert Downey Jr. sneaking on, even though they're superheroes, they're sneaking on as humans with guns. That was just that was stupid to me. But
Yeah.
when Tony Stark calls in all of his Iron Men, that was amazing. Especially when you get to the conclusion and the Iron Men turn into fireworks. That is just really cool.
Yeah, that was a cool visual. But at the same time, I have problems with that final battle sequence because I just feel like there's, again, too many suits, like you said. I mean, it's cool to see all these different suits, but when you only get one or two shots of each suit, it almost becomes confusing in a way, like in the way that Transformers 2 was confusing, because there's so many different things going on all at the same time. It feels like they don't give enough justice to all these awesome suits that he's created. I mean, I would love to see I love the Igor suit, which is kind of the one that was kind of hunched over, and it was like a heavy lifting suit. And I mean, I would have loved to see Tony actually get in that and do some damage, but you don't. It's one of the remotely controlled suits. And to kind of know what each suit does, because that was one of the things I found confusing. I said, okay, I mean, there's the scene in the first act where Tony and Rhodey are in the restaurant. He's talking like, I got a bomb disposal one. I have all these different suits. But when you actually see him, you don't understand what's special about each one or what's different about each one. And as cool as the visual is of all the suits flying in, I think that kind of turned me off on the final action sequence. But the scene that I mentioned earlier that I absolutely loved was the plane, the Air Force One scene. I just thought that was so great. I mean, I told my friends after we got out of the screening, I'm like, I thought the movie was okay, but I was completely invested in the scene where all the people get sucked out of Air Force One and they're all plummeting, and Tony has to save them all. And he can, obviously the suit can only hold 4 people or whatever, and he ends up doing it. But I just found it so realistic. I mean, something like that takes place in the air, if you will, or kind of, in a sky setting can look very green screenish at times, if you don't do it right. And I thought as far as visuals were concerned and as far as the tension of that scene, it was just one of the high points, for me in the film. So what did you think about the airplane scene?
Well, it's really awesome. It's a really good 2-minute sequence of cinema that is just, it's both terrifying and beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
And they even justify this idea that all these people can be linked together because he shocks their hands into being locked.
Yes.
So it's not like it's not like a ridiculous sequence where it's just like, oh, these people are all strong enough to hold each other up. No, like there's a reason as to why they can.
Yeah.
I just wish they would have taken more. I wish they would have taken more of that type of knowledge into the rest of the film, so that way the rest of the film could have been that good too.
I know, and I completely have to agree with you. I like that little touch there. And it was little things like that, like I mentioned earlier, like they could have just been solved with a line of dialogue. I mean, that was one line of dialogue, and it completely blows out plot holes of that scene. I mean, of course, you could always argue that a constant stream of electricity like that would maybe kill a person before they hit the ground. But if it's weak enough, then, I mean, it's in the realm of possibility. I mean, if you're watching a movie where a guy can create a suit in a cave out of armor with futuristic technology, then, I mean, I think you can believe a little thing like that. So, I mean, ultimately, this movie just kind of it felt like it could have been one of the greatest third movies in a trilogy, but I felt like it was a missed opportunity,
I also want to point out one one minor detail that opens. It opens like right in the beginning of the film, and I kind of should have realized that it was going to go downhill from this point. But when he gets in the 42 suit, and Jarvis is telling him, "Oh, it's not ready for battle," and I'm like, "Wait, why did he choose this suit then? Like, why didn't he pick a suit that was ready for battle? That way he could fight in this movie." And it kind of sets up for the rest of the film where he doesn't fight anything.
Yeah.
And he relies on everyone else to fight for him. I mean, sure, he's technically controlling these robotic ones, but that's not what I wanted.
Yeah,
like, I paid a movie to see Iron Man fight a villain. That's what I paid to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could make the point as far as that is concerned that maybe the extremists, that was the only suit that he was messing with that he could actually, through force of will, come to him. But I have to agree, like, because even in the end sequence on the oil derrick, where you realize that he can say, "Okay, Jarvis, I need the suit," and it comes right to him. I mean, it's a little shady in that respect. So I don't know. It's just again. It's one of those things where it could have just been solved with just a couple lines of dialogue.
I also want to point out that suit that he recalls constantly throughout the movie. Did we really need 4 times where the suit falls apart as a joke?
Yeah. I thought the last one was good. If they would have just done it in the final battle where he's like, "The prodigal son returns," like, I thought that was a great moment. That was one of those great visual moments in the movie. But as far as comedy is concerned, but yeah, I have to agree. I mean, even in the scene where after the airplane sequence when he lands on the bridge and he gets hit by the bus, I found that moment really nice too. Though as far it's being overused, but it was a nice little surprise, even though it was set up earlier in the movie and I should have seen it coming. I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, again, on that note, let's talk about. Did you actually think Gwyneth Paltrow was actually dead towards the end? The Pepper character was dead.
Yeah, I was watching this with my girlfriend, and my girlfriend caught on that she wasn't because she caught Guy Pearce putting the vial into her IV.
And
I didn't catch on to that, so I was thinking, "Oh, Gwyneth Paltrow's dead." Oh, cool. They actually gave Iron Man a reason to fight this guy, and then when you find Gwyneth Paltrow down there, you're like, "Really, guys?
Yeah.
Come on!" I wanted to see. Especially since they set up this idea that Tony Stark is going to get revenge on the Mandarin. Right in the opening third of the film, he talks about getting old-fashioned American revenge on this guy. And it's like, let me get this old-fashioned American revenge. Like, I want to see Iron Man fighting the Mandarin. Do it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I completely have to agree. So I think we've said enough about the action scenes. There's one more thing I want to ask you about, and that is the ending of this film, so to speak, the kind of final montage of the movie where Tony magically can have surgery to have his shrapnel removed. I mean, if he could have done this in the first movie, like, why not? I mean, I just don't understand the choice to do that, really. I mean, I understand from a filmmaking standpoint and from a contractual standpoint that you're going to have to pay Robert Downey Jr. a shitload of money to come back, and by doing it the way they did it, they can set up someone else to become Iron Man, But I felt like it was a cheat in a way,
Well, my question is, how does his heart work now? Like, does he still have a heart that beats, or is the shrapnel being gone mean that it's less interference for his chest piece to work? That's what confused me.
Yeah. And I mean, if the chest piece is going to be completely gone, shouldn't he have a huge freaking hole in his chest now? I mean, you'd think, but
like, what do they put in, a fake heart or something? But I didn't understand that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he could have done that in Iron Man 1 or 2. Like, it would have made much more sense to do it then. Because then he would have mastered the technology to a point where he could be the best Iron Man that he could. So I didn't get that either.
I know it seemed a little tacked on. They're like, oh crap, like we kind of have to have something to close out a trilogy. It is a third movie, so we have to have closure. Um, but actually, one more question for you. Did you get to see the post-credit scene?
Yes.
What did you think?
It was okay. It was a funny little anecdotal scene between Bruce Banner and Tony Stark. But I was hoping they would actually set something up for like Thor 2 or something. That would have been a lot better. Like have a scene, like a kind of intro scene where like Thanos is sneaking in to steal the ring. Like that would have been cool or something.
Yeah,
of
to
that
steal the
nature.
Infinity Gauntlet. Yeah, I mean, even seeing a post-credit stinger for Guardians of the Galaxy, which would have been awesome because if you've been reading anything on the movie, there's actually one of the suits is a space suit. He designed it specifically to go into space after the Avengers, and I'm like, oh man, that's the perfect opportunity. You see Tony flying away. In the post-credit scene, and it cuts to the intergalactic stuff, and that would be a good way to kind of introduce people to the more cosmic elements that are going to come in a lot of the future Marvel movies. But then I saw the final sequence, and I saw he blows up all the suits, and I'm like, okay, well that's not going to happen. But I thought the scene was fun. I really love the idea that the whole movie is really just Tony telling this to Bruce in a therapy session, like because he's kind of narrating the beginning of the movie. And it feels like that, like the post-credits stinger was kind of like saying, okay, like he's been talking to Bruce about this the whole time, And I really like that, even though the scene is really just a character scene, like you said, and it doesn't do anything to kind of move the universe as a whole forward. But I don't know, it really reminded me of the shawarma scene in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like one of those fun
that's
things.
What I felt like it's like a last second add-on scene to get another laugh from the crowd, which is fine. I don't mind that.
Yeah, and I'm actually surprised they brought Bruce Banner into this one. Like simply because Mark Ruffalo, he's.
I was actually hoping they'd do a little teaser scene for Ant-Man. Like I thought that would have been a lot better.
Or I don't know if you saw the Ant-Man test footage. That would have been perfect to put after Iron Man 3. It's online now. They actually released the Ant-Man footage in the new Marvel box set, the Phase 1 box set, but I digress.
That or they could have done a cool scene where Nick Fury is talking to Spider-Man to kind of add him to the Avengers. That would have been cool.
As cool as that would be, it'll never happen as long as Sony has the rights.
That's true.
Because they're going to say, well, we want 50% of it, and there's no way Disney's going to give up 50% of $1 billion movie. It's just not going to happen. But for those people at home, this movie, I just read online right now, is the second highest grossing weekend of all time. It came in at just under 180 million, so early estimates have it about 175, 178. So I just thought that was an interesting tidbit that all these 3D Marvel movies start coming out and they become some of the highest grossing films of all time. Did you see this movie in 3D, Kurt?
No, I went 2D.
Good choice. Unfortunately, I was forced to see this movie in 3D only because the theater at my house has a kind of an IMAX equivalent. It's kind of like a wall-to-wall screen, and the only way you could see that movie in that theater was for the 3D. So I made the sacrifice, and I have to say, save your money. It's not a very good conversion on this one. So I could definitely say save your $3. Okay, so is there anything else you want to add to this, Kurt?
I think I'm okay.
All right, cool. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and sign off for the night. Tommy didn't get to see this movie this weekend, so he's probably going to be seeing it sometime in the next week, and we'll definitely be getting his opinion on this one, hopefully in a future episode. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and sign off. My name is Taylor Salen, and joining me is...
Kurt Hall.
All right, well, we'll see you next time, Kurt. You have a great night.
You too.